efforts come to fruition, it is clear that we will have staved off the worst excesses of a post-Brexit hangover. And these actions are necessary because at this juncture the impact of Brexit is not a well-defined scenario for this country, who are very much the collateral damage in the referendum result. So managing uncertainties like the potential volatility of sterling and the implications for retailers' cost bases, while at the same time continuing or encouraging companies to continue with growth plans, are essentially the key challenges that are facing our industry in 2017. But also we can't lose focus on the extraordinary advances that have been made in reducing unemployment to 6.6%. That figure was just announced last week, and I have to say that's something that you could only have dreamt of, certainly when I entered the political arena in 2011, where it was at 15%. So I suppose just to kind of reiterate it, that's why it's absolutely critical that Budget 2018 and our Brexit negotiations have the strong leadership and experience that is necessary to try and deliver us out of choppy waters. Because disentangling Ireland from the UK is certainly the most brutal breakup of a long-standing relationship, and we do need to ensure that we get the best possible terms from our neighbours in the EU to safeguard Irish retailers and the 282,000 jobs and 200,000 businesses that are dependent on the relationship. Because for many local businesses it's certainly a very, very difficult time, and it's an uncertain time for them. And I think it's critical that a post-Brexit Ireland remains a self-confident, outward-looking and innovative country, and I don't believe we should let anything jeopardise that. So thank you very much for listening. I look forward to taking questions after.
Thank you very much, and I took a few messages from your presentation, and one I think was meant for me was to make sure that the 2018 budget is Brexit proofed, and I'll do my very best to ensure that. But I think there was two other figures that she mentioned, and she did mention, and I had mentioned, the 282,000 people employed in the sector. But one figure that just hits me every time I hear it, and I think we may need to have a meeting about it again, and that's the €850,000 that's spent every hour in Ireland on online trading. So it has changed the whole retail landscape. So I think that is certainly something that we can talk about again. Anyway, I believe that Nicola Byrne is now sitting in the audience. I'm going to call Nicola. Nicola is the incoming president of the Irish Exporters Association. She's a professional entrepreneur. She is the chief executive of Cloud90, and that's a new company delivering frontline services in online risk. She's the founder and chief executive of 11890. She's a member of the Fingal County Enterprise Evaluation Board. She's a board member of the Ireland-US Council, and she's a former board member of the British-Irish Chamber of Commerce, and she's a really good friend of mine. Thank you, Monica.
This is really great. I told Mary I'd drop up, so I have absolutely nothing prepared for you. But as luck would turn out, I'm actually up in the Department of Foreign Affairs at a Oireachtas committee on Thursday morning, so quite a few figures to hand. Brexit. Wow. Who'd have known? I spent most of last week in Northern Ireland and the UK, and in fact every week I'm spending 3 days in the UK. And I'm quite taken aback to how nobody seems to care over there that this has happened. So I'm going over bringing little gifts saying Ireland this direction. I stopped in Belfast Airport and I bought little snow globes with Ireland this direction. I went to a meeting in Aviva. I walked into the meeting and the two senior gentlemen opposite me, who I'm trying to negotiate with, I handed the little snow globes to them, and I shook it and I handed it to them, and they looked at me in total amazement, going, what is this lunatic doing? And I'm thinking, I'm trying to negotiate something that could be worth hundreds of millions, and I'm walking in with two Irish snow globes, and they're thinking, she's lost it. And when I put it on the table in front of them, I very cheekily turned around and said to them, lads, I said, yeah, I believe it's French, isn't it? And they went, yeah. I was with the French Foreign Minister last week. We had him over in Dublin and he did an event for us. There, let me go. And I said, he said we trade 52 billion each way between here and the UK. And he says, but we only trade 10 billion each way between here and France. And he was very upset, the French Foreign Minister was, because he couldn't understand that after you Brexit, that we'd have to be much nicer to the French because they're going to be our nearest neighbour. And the lads said, well, why are you handing us snow globes? And I went, because you're not going to be in London. And I thought I'd point out, rather than going to Paris, you should all come to Dublin, because there's no better place to do business, and we speak the same language as you. And for about 30 seconds, they stared, and then eventually they smiled and went, don't be stupid, we're not going anywhere. And I thought, have you been in Dublin recently? We're getting Barclays, we're getting HSBC most likely, we're going to get quite a few bank head offices. And where banking goes, insurance follows. I said, because you're all a little clique. I said, I can move around this square mile here in London and you're all together. I said, but when half of that power base moves, you're all going to be screwed. And then they looked at me again and went, don't be stupid, that's not going to happen, we're Aviva. And I just looked at them and went, and you're leaving? And he goes, but we're not leaving, we'll still be here doing our jobs. I said, I think we better start this meeting, lads, because you're not understanding what the world looks like. Because at the moment, you're playing tennis, where the other end of the court is in complete darkness. And I said, because my other mate is a Romanian ambassador. And they went, really? I said, and she's amazing. I said, she came from a communist country where if you were caught with $1 in your pocket in her younger days, they would lock you up for life. I said, but they're now free, and they live in Europe. And Irish people earn 4 times their minimum wage compared to Romania. And she's pissed because the Irish is getting all the business. And our minimum wage keeps going up and up and up. And Romania's isn't. And she told me Romania makes better wheat and better milk and better this and better that. So she's dying for you to leave the EU because she's going to move the power base to the other side of Europe. And she's going to do it with vengeful glee because her next nearest neighbour is a communist. She doesn't want to be communist again. So the only chance she has of keeping her country in this democracy, she said, is to vote for Europe and keeping the strength and bound of Europe, because the power has moved to the other side of Europe. It's moved east. It's no longer to the west. And for about 30 seconds, the boys in Aviva genuinely went, nah, you're making it up. And I went, lads, have you read the Financial Times or The Economist in the last few weeks? And they went, but Nicola, I said, look, I can stand here all night and quote statistics at you. In fact, I'm quite good at numbers. I said, and I'd love to tell you that you're actually playing tennis and you're actually going to knock a ball back from the other team because you know what they're going to do. But the problem is, you're playing it into the dark at the moment, and they've yet to turn on the lights at the other end of that court. And when they do, the picture's not going to be so bright. And he says, well, why are you taking us to Ireland? I said, well, those 100 jobs that Barclays threw over here, if all those boys and girls come over here and earn 100 grand a year or 200 grand a year, there's going to be brand new beauticians, brand new schools, brand new foot massages, brand new everything. I said retail will pick up, everything will pick up, because those 100 jobs, they'll come with families and they'll come with friends and they'll come with people who want to visit. And they might commute initially because it's only an hour, and sure, I do it the other way. So I said, but I go to London, I have to stay in London, I have to get my hair cut because sometimes I just don't have time to come home and do it in Dublin. People who come here to work bring money. I said, and we've been attracting that money over and over and over again. So I am really hopeful that Ireland is going to thrive in the next 24 months. So the meeting went on and we finished rather happily, and they're coming to Dublin next week. And I had insisted that they come to Dublin before I left the meeting, because all my first 6 meetings have been over in Lime Street in this very posh office. And they all come down from Manchester, and I'm saying, rather than everyone travel to London, why don't we all travel to Dublin? And believe it or not, for 2 of the most well-travelled men I've ever met in insurance, they have never been to Dublin. It never crossed their mind that they'd want to come to Dublin. And what never crossed their mind is they never had reason to come to Dublin because they just assumed that we just didn't know what we were doing. What they failed to see is that we have become quite brilliant at most things we do. And we are talented beyond all belief. We've attracted more FDI. We have done it quietly by building relationships. And those relationships have stood us the test of time. So I'm not going to go on because, in fact, I could give you lots more figures, but really interestingly, and I think one that should be noticed is, and I'm going to read it from my phone rather than get it bloody wrong on you. Because if I get it wrong, I'll kill myself at this point.